On the other, the Mississippi River. Then in the center, stuck in the center, 100,000 residents, many of whom just don't have the money for hotels, don't have cars, didn't get out of the city. But then you got to think, there's tourists in New Orleans. They're spending a lot of money in these hotels. They had the money to get out, and they just chose not to. Perhaps it's because they're not taking our warning seriously. Perhaps it's because when Hurricane Dennis came into town a couple months ago, it wasn't so bad. In fact, I was covering Hurricane Dennis in New Orleans, and they were spared. And we had to drive to Alabama. The people of Alabama, Mississippi, and the Florida Panhandle were the ones that really suffered. New Orleans has been spared every single time. This could possibly be their one recipe for disaster that they have been dreading forever, and certainly history going down right now. Foxcaster Janice Dean is tracking Katrina from the Fox News Weather Center. Janice, unfortunately, your warnings that you've been delivering all day long not being listened to by people in New Orleans who didn't get out.
I know, and when you think about it, I mean, waking up this morning and seeing that this is a Category 5, really, it's a nightmare. And just watching all of those people that are lined up, ready to try and seek shelter in that Superdome, and who knows if that roof of the Superdome is even going to withstand 165-mile-per-hour sustained winds and that storm surge. I was wondering if maybe producers could put up where those levees are located at Lake Pontchartrain and the Mississippi River. If I can just show you, we're expecting storm surge of 20 to 30 feet high, and some of those levees, the highest levee, maybe 18 to 20 feet. So you have that storm surge, that wall of water on top of the tide moving into the coastline and moving across that levee, and it acts like a slide with all of that water going in. So obviously this is the worst case scenario. This is the worst storm to hit the worst possible location. And having said that, let's take a look at the coordinates. I mean, this storm is so impressive. They talk about, you know, the heaviest wind bands and the rain in the northeast quadrant of the storm, but the western half of the storm looks really good as well. So you've got the eye wall, the high cloud tops. I mean, this is a storm you're going to see in those books, in those weather books that you read, because it really is unbelievably symmetrical in shape. And it's moving northwest at around 13 miles per hour, 150 miles south of the mouth of the Mississippi River. 165 miles sustained winds, as you've heard. As well, we've heard gusts in New Orleans of 43 miles per hour. They're going to start to feel hurricane strength winds and rain, possibly into the overnight hours. Well, we're pretty sure. We are positive in the overnight hours, somewhere around 2, 3 a.m. We think landfall, as of the latest track, probably anywhere between 4 a.m. and 6 a.m. But again, stressing that every advisory that comes out, the next one at 8 p.m. Eastern, watching it very closely, because storm of this size and magnitude and strength can wobble a little bit to the right and wobble a little bit to the left. But the current track, the current thinking is going to send it right into New Orleans at this point. And again, just the worst possible case scenario. Taking a look at the outer bands, this is radar, and actually the last few scenes of this, you can see the eye right there as this continues to move in. So of course we're going to feel heavy rains and winds into the evening as this storm bears down on the northeastern Gulf Coast states. And here is the track as we've been showing you. Again, I know you're probably sick of seeing this track, but it changes every few hours. So again, very important to watch it closely. And as of 5 p.m. Eastern time, again, that timeline looking somewhere between 4 a.m. and 6 a.m. moving in and over the New Orleans area. Again, those winds and rain in the northeast quadrant really moving across that Lake Pontchartrain, and that's what we are afraid of, that Pontchartrain coming over its banks and into the city of New Orleans. And then we are going to feel the effects of this storm well into next week. 10 to 15 inches of rain on top of that storm surge, and then once it gets into the Mississippi and the Tennessee and the Ohio Valley, anywhere from 4 to 6 inches of rainfall. And of course, there are your advisories. They haven't changed. Your hurricane warnings from Morgan City, Louisiana, eastward to Alabama, Florida border, and those will continue. So areas in those neighborhoods hopefully have evacuated. Back to you guys.
All right, Janice Dean, thank you so much for keeping us updated.
Well, the mayor of New Orleans got the bad news from the officials, the experts who said those levees could topple. given the storm surge that is predicted. And in a city of about 500,000 people in New Orleans, and in fact 1.4 million in the metro area, he ordered them to get out, a mandatory evacuation. But about 100,000, and that number could be on either side of it, didn't do it, either because they were stranded tourists, or they didn't understand, or they had no means to get out. Some of the elderly, a lot of folks, as Shep pointed out, just don't have transportation in that city. And so many of them went to the 10 shelters that have been set up, including the Superdome, which is home to the New Orleans Saint football team, and that's where Jeff Goldblatt has been standing by, checking the situation out, talking to people there over the last several hours, and he joins us now with an update. Jeff?
Hi, Greg. We're starting to see steady rain here at the Superdome. Many of these people have been waiting outside 2 hours, 3 hours, just to get inside the Superdome, a place of last resort for those trying to flee from Hurricane Katrina. I talked to some people. They were from England, others from Australia. They were tourists here, got caught off guard, didn't know about the storm. Talked to another family. They just had nowhere to go. He was an American citizen, but from Honduras, and brought his whole family in. As they look outside here, you see men and women, kids of all ages, all cultures, and all backgrounds, all going to be spending this night inside the Superdome. They're estimating, that is the Army National Guard, the folks who are in charge of security here, that 20,000 to 30,000 people will be inside the Superdome for this event. Hurricane Ivan, which is the last time they evacuated and allowed people inside the Superdome, they had 2,000. So if that was the test run, this is the real deal. The Superdome is equipped to handle 72,000 people. It is 27 stories tall, and my understanding is the upper level of seating is about 10 to 12 stories high. So if indeed we do get that storm surge, people are going to be able to go up into the higher parts of the stadium to get some measure of comfort and some safety, perhaps. Right now we're on a ramp that's over the street level. We're about 2 stories high, and so if that storm surge does come down through downtown New Orleans, as has been feared, as has been predicted, conceivably everything below us that you're seeing right now will be swamped by this time late tomorrow. They're in the process, the Army National Guard is, of trying to get people some shelter. If they can't get inside, they're trying to get them under the awning or under the concrete of the Superdome. One of the reasons things are taking quite some time here is because they want to make sure, for the sake of security, that they check your bags, that you have no weapons, that there's no alcohol brought inside. They're urging people that if you need to come to the Superdome, don't bring everything inside from your house, because they need to go in and check everything. So that's kind of what's taking things quite some time here. But despite that, I would say that the spirits of everyone here very positive. They're just happy there is some place to go, and for the most part, there is order here at the Superdome. The only small sign of unrest I heard was about 10 seconds of chanting. I'd say about an hour and a half ago, when one of the first showers came through, and people started chanting, "Let us in, let us in." But for some reason, that quickly died off. We're expecting here within the next couple of minutes some of the officials from the Superdome and local sheriff's office, and perhaps from the Army National Guard, to give us some kind of briefing as to what's going to take place inside the Superdome. And when we get those folks here to our camera, we'll obviously bring that to you live. But for now, let's throw it back to you in New York.
Well, we hope the Superdome does indeed turn out to be a place of refuge, though the roof of the dome has never been tested at 165 miles per hour wind gusts, and that may be larger than that. Jeff Goldblatt, thanks very much.
Well, Alabama's entire shoreline now under a hurricane warning. That includes the coastal city of Mobile, Alabama. With us now on the phone is the mayor of that city, Michael Dow. Mayor, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, Julie, I'm glad they're doing. They're taking their life in their own hands, and I think our police are probably more interested in trying to help people in need, that really need our help and want to get on out of there.
And when these people do, if they do fall in the water, there's nobody there to save them, and it's just incredible and extremely frustrating, considering all the people whose lives are going to be affected by this. You know, we talk so much about property damage with these hurricanes, but hurricanes are about people. I mean, when it comes down to it, you know, Shepard was talking about it earlier. People lose their homes, fine, you can rebuild. You lose your life, that's it, you're done.
Well, the wind to a wind hurricane is one thing. We have a Category 5 with a storm surge. The storm surge is what kills. that has got to be taken very seriously.
And drownings, and that's why we're talking about these people out here, because flooding and drownings are the biggest reasons why people do die in these terrible hurricanes. And this hurricane in particular will be packed with serious rains and winds. And let's pray for these people, even though I really honestly don't understand what they're doing.
We're all concerned for New Orleans, and we'll be trying to give them whatever help we can after the event is over.
Okay. All right. Well, Mayor, thank you so much for talking to us. And, you know, again, these pictures just unbelievable to see.
What are these people thinking? And let's just hope that they don't end up. All it takes is one wave to wash them out, and they're finished. And the guy on the surfboard, maybe that's his life-saving device, his flotation device, but it might not last long if the surf begins to pick up, as it will increasingly, and sometimes there's no notice of it. You're looking live at pictures here. This is the breakfront, the waterfront there that helps to protect from beach erosion. And people are actually standing out on it as it extends out. And there's a guy, you can't see him right now with this shot, but there's a guy on a surfboard who's got to be half crazy to be doing that with a Category 5 hurricane with storm surges up to 28 feet approaching imminently. Well, a potentially catastrophic hurricane has New Orleans also in its crosshairs. In fact, they're predicting now a direct hit. The Federal Emergency Management Agency says that they are ready with food and a shelter and a whole lot more for those in the storm's path. Let's turn now to Fox's Molly Henneberg live in Washington with more on that part. Hi, Molly.
Hi, Greg. FEMA says it's pre-positioning people, rescue workers, and resources such as generators and tarps, food and water to move in after the hurricane passes. They also say they've been
weeks, perhaps longer, and that is where Fox's Jeff Goldblatt has been all day long, braving the storm in New Orleans. He joins us once again from the Superdome. How are people making out? Has everyone gotten into safety yet?
Julie, as you can see behind me, not everyone inside the Superdome yet. Despite that, however, everyone in good humor and in good spirits. We're actually making some friends here in line, I would say. Don't get all shy on me, my friend over here. This is Jamie and this is Ronald. Ronald, how many hours have you been waiting in line for?
Oh, we've been waiting about 3 hours.
What do you think?
Graveyards giving up their dead. The streetcars on Desire elsewhere, sunken like submarines. The vast majority of the city's homes and businesses damaged or destroyed. Hundreds of thousands of your fellow citizens made instant refugees. And centuries of colorful history submerged in that vast cesspool of toxic waste. To give you an idea of the doomsday scenario this perfect storm might indeed entail, I want to read now verbatim from the urgent message issued this morning by the National Weather Service from New Orleans. We have tried to match their words with video from past storms, although with the exception of 1992's Hurricane Andrew, in recorded history, no storm this powerful has made a direct hit on an urban area. Again, the author of what you are about to hear, the National Weather Service, to read verbatim.
Devastating damage expected. Hurricane Katrina, a most powerful hurricane with unprecedented strength, rivaling the intensity of Hurricane Camille of 1969. Most of the area will be uninhabitable for weeks, perhaps longer. At least one half of well-constructed homes will have roof and wall failure. All gabled roofs will fail, leaving those homes severely damaged or destroyed. The majority of industrial buildings will become non-functional. Partial to complete wall and roof failure is expected. All wood-framed low-rising apartment buildings will be destroyed. Concrete block low-rise apartments will sustain major damage, including some wall and roof failure. High-rise office and apartment buildings will sway dangerously, a few to the point of total collapse. All windows will be blown out. Airborne debris will be widespread and may include heavy items, such as household appliances and even light vehicles. Sport utility vehicles and light trucks will be moved. The blown debris will create additional destruction. Persons, pets, and livestock exposed to the winds will face certain death if struck. Power outages will last for weeks, as most power poles will be down and transformers destroyed. Water shortages will make human suffering incredible by modern standards.
Joining us on the telephone right now, Louisiana's Governor Kathleen Blanco. Governor, thank you for taking the time at this your probably most stressful time of your political life, maybe your life totally. Can you tell us how you're feeling about the preparations, such as they have been possible to make, given the fact that this is a monstrous, maybe a catastrophic natural event?
Well, I'm very pleased with the level of preparation that we've been able to achieve in such a short period of time. Geraldo, we didn't have the first knowledge that this hurricane was turning our way until late Friday night, early yesterday morning. A lot of citizens went to bed Friday night not knowing that it was going to be heading into Louisiana. Saturday morning, a lot of them went about their business and didn't turn into any media outlets and didn't know it until sometime later in the day yesterday. We've done a magnificent job of evacuating hundreds of thousands of people. We don't know an exact number, but 18,000 an hour were being evacuated. And our people have just responded so well, and we appreciate all of the information that the media has given us.
Governor Blanco, where were you for Camille, and do you have Camille-like nightmares this night?
Well, yeah, I was not in Camille itself, but in the aftermath of that storm, you know, it had a vicious impact, as hurricanes do. Louisiana has experienced its share of big storms. The difference in this one is this is the first time that it's taken such a direct aim at our most heavily populated areas of Orleans and Jefferson parishes. Our low-lying areas have suffered the impact of hurricanes over and over. Those folks got out early. They knew that they should not stay. We had a very well-coordinated effort. Now we just are asking people to pray. We still have a lot of people on the highways getting out of harm's way, but everybody's been so cooperative. It's just been a magnificent experience of a good, strong cooperative effort, along with all of the local officials who've just done a magnificent job.
Governor Blanco, do you ever have those dark feelings that you've done everything you can do and it's not enough because this thing is just so unprecedented, so extraordinary, the damage that it has the potential to inflict so enormous?
I think that all of us who are working in this effort and all of us here in Louisiana have that feeling. We've done all that is in our capacity to do. We don't know if it's been enough. We know it's getting ready to come. We know that this is just the beginning. How do you prepare for such an event? You know, the best way to prepare is just try to get out of its way and let it happen. We'll go pick up the pieces. I'm more concerned about life, about people losing their lives than I am about property destruction. Now, property can be rebuilt. It's not going to be fun. It's not going to be easy. But you cannot replace life, and that's what our concern is.
The potential tragic loss of so much of the legacy of not only New Orleans and Louisiana, but of the world there in the magical city there on the Delta. You must, you know, how do you deal with that?
Well, it's not a beautiful thought to imagine our treasured city devastated. But I do know that our people have strength and creativity, and we have a special energy that allows us to rebuild and recreate whatever we lose. We'll do it even better. We hope that we're not going to lose a lot of our fabulous traditional sites, our buildings. You know, we don't know what's getting ready to happen, but we believe that whatever it is, we're going to deal with it, and we're going to make the best of it.
I wish you the best.
Thank you, Geraldo.
I do. Best wishes. Our hearts go out to you and your constituents and everyone gathered, huddled there in the Superdome, Super Bowl, and elsewhere in the Superdome.
I ask the nation to pray for us. Thank you.
You've got it. All right, let's take a quick break. When we do, we'll continue our tour 24/7 coverage of this unprecedented
of last resort. That is what it is. It's going to be very basic.
Just just our viewers, just a second ago, I don't know if you can get that shot, Michael, again. That's Interstate 10 heading toward Baton Rouge at, I guess this would be a little bit after 9 o'clock Central Time. Traffic is moving. It's not moving very fast, and it's certainly not the kind of traffic you'd expect on a Sunday night heading into Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Is the Red Cross set up at the Superdome?
The National Guard is here and the police are here. I do not know if the Red Cross is here as well, although I did see some Red Cross trucks around the other side of the Superdome earlier today.
Are people scared?
Yes, they are, and I think that's a testament to why so many of them did leave, those that could get out, the million plus that got out. They've evacuated before for smaller storms. A lot of people say, oh, we're not leaving, we're not going to go the next time. But this one has people very, very scared because the realities of what could happen, the flooding, 15 to 20 feet of water in the city, are so real possibilities with this storm, and it has been beaten into their heads here of what could happen with this kind of storm, that they are leaving.
John, just quickly, one other thing, and we'll get back to you as this 2-hour program continues tonight, but how long do they expect to be there?
In the Superdome till Tuesday. That's given that there isn't water standing where I'm standing 10, 15 feet high 2 days from now. But Tuesday is the day, and then the federal government and the state government is supposed to come and get them and get them out of the Superdome. Where they will go from there, I don't know.
What's the weather like? Is it raining right now?
It's that calm before the storm. A light breeze, a very, very little bit of rain falling. That's it.
John, thank you. Many of our viewers perhaps know this, some may not. John has looked, David, for ways to describe it, but essentially it's built like a bowl. If you will. You have these levees. It's surrounded by water on 3 sides. You have these levees, and the best description I can come up with is it's a bowl, and when the water, if it happens, the storm surge comes over those levees, breaches those levees, it ends up in the bottom of the bowl.
That's right, and I'm standing pretty much at the bottom of the bowl right here in the French Quarter. If the dire predictions are true, there will be water well over my head here and possibly well up into the second floor of most of these buildings. And you might look behind me and see how empty Bourbon Street is right now. People who live here tell me that this street never really closes when hurricanes come through, but it has this time. It's relatively empty. The streets are wet. Nobody really down here except for a couple of people walking through occasionally. The lights are on, a very Tennessee Williams lonely feel to it right now. And we just got this newspaper that came in, the Times-Picayune. I know how you like to show headlines on your show. And here's the big one, the very obvious one here for New Orleans today, ground zero. Everyone preparing for the absolute worst, as those floodwaters could easily be coming in here and just inundating this entire city.
I don't know who's going to get that paper tomorrow morning. It sounds like everybody's gotten out. Bourbon Street is, to me, about the closest thing to Las Vegas there is without gambling. That is to say, it is a 24-hour town. It's always going. I was reading earlier tonight that restaurants pretty much shut down and boarded up with no real idea when they'll open again.
That's right. I was walking down through here last night just doing research, I assure you, and most of the places were still open. There were crowds here. There were people shoulder to shoulder in the streets like they always are. But in the restaurants, where you can really tell the people who have come here to stay and spend some money, the restaurants weren't even needing to take reservations last night. They had plenty of tables waiting, allowing people to come in and do whatever they needed to do. So
with straight line wind damage and also the tornadic activity, we've already had a couple of tornado warnings, and right now we've got showers and thunderstorms around the area producing some lightning and thunder. Let's go to Sky Tracker real quick and show you what's going on. And you can see the line of showers and storms rotating around the northern side, the northern periphery of the hurricane, but also notice the fact that it's starting to move north. It continues to move north as the hurricane moves north. So we're getting some very heavy rain right now and unusual thunder and lightning. We don't often see that with tropical systems, but we've got it tonight. So there's that other issue of lightning being out there. The other issue is the big evacuation continuing along I-10 and I-65. A lot of people out on the roads today. We talked to a few of those. We talked to one guy who had a real good sense of humor about the whole process.
Yep, we have. Getting out of Dodge. We got to take and leave right here, and we're going to head down to Pensacola. We ain't going to the beach. You know what I mean, Jelly Bean? It just ain't worth the hassle of sitting through something like that and not knowing what to expect, see? So my old saying is better be safe than sorry, huh? They said that it's only one lane, and we ain't going to go over that I-10 bridge, so we're going to go on down through Pensacola, I-110, and take 98, see? It ain't worth going through, you know? Some people want to act tough. I'm more tough than I. Well, hey, c'est la vie, yeah? Do what you want to do, but not me. And then we're going to scramble back up 231 back to I-10 into Mariana. That's pretty good ways from where we're at right now. It's over 100 miles. Yeah, we got a convoy. We're headed east. Right. They used to say go west, young man, but not me. I'm going east.
Hey, it's the Jelly Bean Man. Back to you, Sharon, Mike.
Mike Seidel reporting live tonight from Mobile, Alabama. Appreciate the report. We're going to check back with Mike periodically through the evening.
And it is Hurricane Central here at the Weather Channel. And as Hurricane Katrina continues to spin its destructive path here toward the Gulf Coast, the Weather Channel is committed to bringing you the very latest developments. We invite you to stay with us. Coming up next, we'll talk about more of the inland impacts, who could be impacted, and for how long. Those details coming up.
A Category 4, but if it hits as a Category 4, you're still going to have,
yeah, it's not a whole heck of a lot of difference from 160 to 170, you know?
Yeah, it's right, 140, you start counting, you still get, according to
140 would be a lot better.
A lot better. But Saffir-Simpson says you get extensive failures of some buildings with some complete roof structure failure in small residences, major erosion of beach areas, terrain flooded well inland. Still, if it hits at 140 as opposed to 160, do you think we're going to dodge another bullet here, or you think that...
Well, I certainly hope so. You know, we've been working, we've been doing the things we need to do to get prepared, and we'll continue to do and whatever we can do.
How many of the structures you have in Biloxi are actually on the water that float?
10.
So you have massive barges on which these casinos and show places are based?
They're about the size of a football field.
So, but they are. What happens if if the rising tide lifts all vessels, regardless of the size of them?
Yes.
You may be taking some of those. Go ahead.
We just haven't had that experience. It's just this is the first real test that these casinos will have with a major hurricane. So we really don't know what to expect.
How would you say? Would you say your mood is grim, Mr. Mayor? You want to give us a characterization? Seconds I have left.
Well, you know, I feel confident that the architectural and engineering firms that built these casinos and these barges knew what they were doing. Our code requires a lot of wind force, tide force, and we have in place what we consider the maximum of a hurricane. We make sure that they have at least built them to specifications of 150 mile an hour sustained wind for a period of time, and so we just have to wait and see what happens.
Good luck. Really good luck.
Thank you. Thank you.
That have, as you know, ladies and gentlemen, Biloxi, that whole area has experienced a huge boom, largely fueled by the casinos, and it's become kind of the Las Vegas of the Gulf of Mexico area there. It would be tragic, and many, many jobs would be lost if they sustained horrible damage. We have not been able to corroborate the mayor's words that the wind is down to 140. We're efforting that right now. We'll know more when you come back right after this brief message.
Vehicles that we can drive into an area and serve water and snacks and various type of food like that to those who are affected right out of the vehicles. We also have some 21 strike teams of personnel staged, ready to move into the area immediately after the storm to begin to do sheltering and feeding of those who were affected. In addition to that, we've staged almost 300,000 heater meals in the Louisiana area. We have a couple of emergency communication response vehicles that have satellite-based equipment on board. We've brought 2 Red Cross mobile kitchens in. These kitchens, we can drive into an area where there's no electricity, no support, it's totally self-contained, and serve some 15 to 20,000 meals out a day, per day out of one of those vehicles. Wow. We have 2 of those brought in. We're blessed to also be assisted by some 12 kitchen groups from Baptist church organizations that are inbound into the area as well to assist us. We have some 13 shelter support trailers standing by. At this point in time, we have about 750 Red Cross workers on the job already, about 2,000 personnel inbound over the next 48 hours, and probably several more beyond that for how long we don't know, Tucker.
Boy, you have done your homework in Louisiana. Mr. Chow, finally, I know this is hard to gauge, hard to measure, but tell me about the mood there. Have you seen panic?
Tucker, you know, it's amazing. We really haven't. If you think about a storm of this size, we're dealing with something that beyond the dreams none of us could really imagine what we're heading into. And yet, in spite of that, I think people are going about day to day doing the work that they know they have to do. I know here at the State Emergency Operations Center, everybody's doing their jobs as quickly and as effectively as they can. I'm sure.
The mother of all shelters there in New Orleans, and Jeff Goldblatt. Jeff, tell us what it's like. Tell us what the people are doing. Tell us, tell us whatever you want to tell us.
It's been a long wait, but the end of the line, Geraldo, is in sight. We have not had the chance to get inside yet because once we go inside, our equipment has to go inside, our pillows have to go inside, our provisions have to go inside. So we're trying to hang out here as long as possible. But many of these folks have been waiting hours upon hours, and they just got good spirits. How you feeling, dear? Almost getting ready to go inside.
I'm doing fine. I'm doing fine. Just
How about you ready to get inside? How about you?
I'm doing wonderful, It's a long wait, but it's all great, you know what I'm saying?
And how are your spirits?
It's beautiful. Every day, all day,
Just really here, Geraldo, everyone just in a good mood, all considering. They feel very fortunate that they have the shelter as a means of last resort for them. It was originally set up as one of 10 shelters for special needs, but this is the only option, it seems like, for more than 20,000 people. Last time they opened up the Superdome to folks was Ivan last summer. They had 2,000 people staying here. Now we're going to have 30,000 people here. One of the things, members of the Army National Guard, they are advising people what they're allowed to bring in and what they're not allowed to bring in. Some of the things that you can't bring in, weapons, you can't bring in any alcohol, you can't bring any sharp objects in. And they also, if you have any kind of prescription medication, you have to have an ID that matches that prescription. Then once you get inside, and this is one of the things that's been taking so long, they screen every person individually. They go through your bags, they give you a body pat. They just want to make sure that everyone is safe because we could be inside here for days. They're just not very sure. Bob, can you swing the camera on over here? I want to show you some of the things that have actually turned up. First of all, there's a trash can, and that's where they're throwing away what they're calling any contraband. But if we come on down here, it's not, Geraldo, they're not just picking them off people. They're just finding it also out on the plaza here on the bricks. Some members of the Army National Guard. You might see our signal bouncing just a bit, I'm sorry, as we go across the plaza here. But this is some of the stuff, Geraldo, that they have confiscated. And Private First Class McKitchen and Private Moses, take it away from here. What's on the ground there?
We have a lot of contraband that we're finding on the ground, as well as taking from people. We have knives, and we have box cutters and combs with points on the end of them, scissors, pliers, wrenches. We got cable splitters. We just got a whole bunch of different stuff that we're taking from people and finding on the ground.
And yet everyone is pretty orderly out here, right, Private Moses?
Yeah, everyone's staying calm. I mean, they're helping us a lot by staying calm and staying in order. But as long as this weather holds off like it is, I think we'll be all right.
Were you surprised by some of the things that you found here?
Yeah, some of the things that we did find we was very surprised about. We didn't think anybody would bring in wrenches or anything like that. But the knives and scissors and fingernail files, we thought that would be here.
And the fingernail files, why do you need to take away things like that?
Because the fingernail files have a point on the end of them. And it's safety precaution for everyone here and for ourselves.
Now, we understand that folks are going to have the opportunity to perhaps be fed inside. I mean, you're not going to give them luxury accommodations, but you're trying to take care of people as best as possible, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so Everyone's orderly outside. They certainly are appreciative, and thanks, guys, for showing us some of the stuff you have out here and for keeping us safe. We appreciate it. So, Geraldo, that's the situation right now. There's been very little rain outside here within the last couple of hours, although the clouds are certainly turning and churning up there in the air. We're bracing for what we fear will be a Category 5 hurricane, a hurricane for history, for all the wrong reasons.
Have to be absolutely perfect to have a hurricane become this strong and intense.
Julie, it will surely be a sleepless night for those who were left behind. No way out of New Orleans. Thousands seeking shelter in what's being called the refuge of last resort. We've been talking about it a lot as we saw those long lines, the Louisiana Superdome, home of the New Orleans Saints. When weather permits, we're going to take you there. But first, let's go to AccuWeather.com meteorologist Bernie Rayno for the very latest. Hi, Bernie.
I'll tell you what, Katrina continues to really be a Category 5 hurricane, a very strong hurricane, the strongest it can actually be. And all you have to do is take a look at the satellite picture. It's not often that you see an eye of a hurricane this well defined. Notice how concentric the clouds are. That is, as many clouds along the north, east, west, and south side of the storm. Notice the movement off to the north. And this is going to be a big problem here. This is what we're looking at as far as damage. This is extreme to catastrophic, including New Orleans, including Pascagoula, very close to Mobile, and then it spreads northward in the Mississippi and Alabama. So this is going to be a far-reaching storm system. Now, certainly a lot of the focus has been on New Orleans, and as we stated, Jim Kosick last hour, we believe that 50 to 70% of New Orleans will be underwater. But Gulfport is going to have problems. Pascagoula, we have a big oil and gas refinery there. We all know about the problems with natural gas and oil. And Mobile is going to be a problem. Notice how their bay is shaped like a funnel. That means all this water in the Gulf of Mexico is going to start to be pushed northward. So they are going to have massive flooding as well. So again, 6 a.m., southern Louisiana, the oil and gas refineries are already being affected. In fact, crude oil is already up 6%, while natural gas is up 23%. 50 to 70% of New Orleans is going to be underwater, and hurricane-force winds are going to spread into Tennessee. So we're not going to see this system weaken that quickly, that we're not going to see the rain and wind spread northward. In fact, this is a far-reaching storm system that's going to be affecting much of the eastern half of the United States as we go through the week. So again, massive damage here from Mobile, Pascagoula, over toward New Orleans, and then we're going to get hurricane-force winds right up into Tennessee, and then the rain is going to be spreading up into Pennsylvania. But again, New Orleans, Pascagoula, Mobile, you are all under the gun. This is a Category 5 hurricane. It'll be making landfall here in about 5 to 6 hours.
Bernie Rayno of AccuWeather.com. Bernie, thanks.
All right, so you heard his warnings. He's talking to the people of Alabama as well. The entire Gulf Coast affected here. Not only is Louisiana under a serious threat, you've got Alabama and Mississippi. In Alabama specifically, though, Katrina headed toward landfall about 150 miles west at New Orleans. Now, forecasters say that this storm is just so big and strong it could actually hit Alabama's coast with nearly the same winds and the same storm surge as Hurricane Ivan did just last September of 2004. So let's head to Alabama right now for the very latest. We're going to get in touch now with Fox's Jonathan Seri in Orange Beach, Alabama.
Yeah, good evening. Well, residents here and local officials are very concerned after experiencing what they did during Hurricane Ivan. Quite a few surprises during Hurricane Ivan. One of the big concerns is storm surge. You had a storm surge considerably lower than what they're anticipating with Katrina, and yet you had this bridge on I-10 that suffered some severe damage. And so now the concern is shifting towards Mobile Bay. One of the major bridges across Mobile Bay was built in the 1970s. It was built to withstand a storm surge of 18 feet. Well, they're anticipating that the storm surge with Katrina could be as high as 20 feet or more in Mobile Bay. So it's anyone's guess as to whether that bridge and other structures like it are going to survive a storm surge like that. Storm surge anticipated to be so high in Mobile Bay because, as explained earlier, it's shaped like a funnel, and you have all of that water from the Gulf of Mexico getting blown in by the winds. But even out here on the Barrier Islands, where you have pretty much open terrain, the storm surge we're expecting as much as 15 feet. And so we're anticipating that much of this island community that I'm standing on will be underwater tomorrow. Greg, back to you.
Just how prepared were they for this, and how seriously did the residents there consider the voluntary evacuation order?
You know, it's a double-edged sword. What happened was after Ivan, everyone realized we need to take these storms seriously. Then last month, during Dennis, they thought it was going to be terrible, so they stocked up on food and water, boarded up their windows with plywood, and then Dennis blew through here very quickly. It caused some serious damage, not to downplay that, but considerably less than anyone had imagined. So a lot of people were waiting until the 11th hour, wanted to know exactly where the storm were going, and it seems like more people than Dennis are willing to just hunker down in their homes, and even those living out on the barrier islands, and take their chances with this storm, feeling that maybe it's been overblown. So it appears that there are more people willing to take risks than any of us would have imagined.
Jonathan, let me ask you, even the most weathered hurricane people down there, they have gone through so many hurricanes. Last year alone was just a devastating hurricane season. Do you believe that people did get out in time? And what are you hearing regarding shelters and people tonight who, by the way, Hurricane Ivan caused them to live in temporary housing? They haven't even been able to rebuild. And now here we go again. But this one certainly bigger and nastier than any other one in history.
Yeah, indeed. And that's what the residents are saying. Here we go again. In fact, many residents who have been here for so long say that they're tired of running away from hurricanes. And so the few people, the minority who have decided to stay behind, many of them are just sick of having to leave town, sick of having to live in shelters, and they have decided, for whatever reason, it's worth the risk.
All right, Jonathan Seri reporting from Alabama. Stay safe, and we'll talk to you later.
Great.
Hurricane Katrina is a killer storm, one we will undoubtedly be talking about for decades to come. Stay right there.
Of the storm.
All right. Well, listen, John Snell, thank you very much. An anchor with WVUE on the situation there in Harvey, Louisiana, across the river from New Orleans.
Well, let's get you a little more information on what's going on in the Superdome. We told you earlier that tens of thousands of people flocked there to use it as an emergency shelter. Authorities have opened it as an emergency shelter, thinking it is perhaps one of the strongest buildings around, and certainly one that's able to hold that many folks who, for whatever reason, couldn't get out of New Orleans. Well, hurricane-force winds have peeled off pieces of metal from the Superdome roof. 2 holes are visible from the floor. Authorities estimate they are about 6 feet long. They don't have any way of getting anybody up there to fix that, of course, so they're just going to have to hope that the rest of the roof holds. These are pictures from yesterday as some of those folks were streaming into the Superdome. The word had gone out that it was the place to go. So at any rate, there must be some nervous folks. Rain is pouring through those holes in the Superdome roof, and everybody on the ground obviously just hoping and praying that the rest of it holds. In the meantime, Joe Albaugh, the former FEMA director and Fox News contributor, is with us. Joe, good morning to you.
Good morning, John.
It must have a kind of a hole in the pit of your stomach right now when you think about what all of the agencies that you used to manage are trying to do to get this thing handled.
Well, I know they're doing their job. Fortunately, President Bush stepped forward on Saturday and declared 3 states, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama, and maybe a 4th.
There's the live look at it. You can tell why Steve was not able to hang around. That's actually a picture from earlier. It did get very bad. He went in, but just to give you a little flavor of what's going on in Gulfport, we're getting some accounts that rescue workers in Gulfport today went through those bursts of heavy rain and wind. They had to rescue several adults and some children from a duplex after Katrina's winds ripped the roof from a nearby structure and slammed the roof into an apartment. Now, believe it or not, nobody was reported hurt in all of that. Now, again, these evacuation notices go out. Some people don't listen to them. We had that report from Harvey, Louisiana, as well as some people trapped in an attic apartment, some people who refused to leave. Let's go to New Orleans and see how things are going there right now. Our own Phil Keating, our correspondent, is on the phone with us. Phil?
Well, I'm in the W Hotel at Poydras in South Peters. That's about 3 blocks from Canal Street and the French Quarter. This hotel is on lockdown right now. The staff pulled everybody out of their rooms on all the floors, and of course, like every hotel downtown, it was 100% capacity. And everyone came down to the second floor ballroom, and that's where they are right now, sprawled out on the floor with pillows and blankets, sitting on chairs, just waiting for the worst of this storm to pass so that they may be then allowed to get back up in the room. Of course, power, electricity, that disappeared around 6 a.m. Eastern, and shortly thereafter, the fiercest winds started arriving, and there is debris flying through the air. There is debris all over the street, palm leaves, pieces of aluminum siding, bus stops that were ripped apart, that we actually saw rip apart live, and also windows missing from these high-rise buildings. I'm looking at a building across the street, the Lowe's Hotel, and there are 16 windows missing right now. Next door to the Comfort Inn, there's about four-story section of paneling, outside panels ripped off. And at the Superdome in New Orleans, you've got the leaky roof happening, 2 sections that have ripped open, and the high-rises around the Superdome. The high-rises around it have broken windows and debris on the ground. So the flooding, though, that everyone's worried about, where I am looking out here, is so far it's draining pretty well if there's not debris clogging the storm drain. So far, so good as far as New Orleans' pumping system to pump the water that drains into the city underneath.
Phil, are you still there with us? Yeah, all right. Well, needless to say, obviously a lot of the phone lines and whatnot are pretty shaky this morning as the storm has affected New Orleans already. And again, probably the biggest example of that right now is peeling holes in the roof off the Superdome, where about 10,000 people were staying. Now, these were people who were not able to evacuate. A lot of the people just didn't have the means to get out of the city, so they flocked to the Superdome. There were
cause as much as $150 billion, or excuse me, I should say it could cause up to $30 billion worth of damage. Now estimates are around 25. Even if it didn't hit, they say, New Orleans, where there's about $150 billion worth of insured property. If it moved off course in the area, it's about 115. Traders say and analysts say that Allstate is the company with the most exposure to the Louisiana, the PNC, and auto.
Know that in these events, being near the beach is maybe not so frightening because, as you say, you're just going to get rain and wind and maybe some sand coming in off the ocean, but you've got some buildings, I guess, to the east of you, huh? That's where some of this debris is coming from?
The only building we've got right here is the hotel, and a good chunk of debris has already flown off that hotel. Otherwise, it's a wide open parking lot and a lot of trees and branches. But because of the rain and because of the walls of rain, it's really tough to see what's coming. And with these silly looking goggles too, you're kind of blind.
Yeah, well, definitely necessary on this morning. Hey, Steve, what time did most people get out of Gulfport?
You know, Bridget, there was a curfew at 9 p.m. last night, in part for security reasons. With all these people evacuating, the police didn't want people going around robbing houses. So people were still leaving, though, after that curfew. Whoa! People were still leaving after that curfew went into effect. They were mainly taking the I-10, which is right behind me, heading east. People trying to get out of Mississippi any way they could. It was remarkable to hear statements by public officials. They were telling people, even if you don't have a place to go, just get in your car and go. Just get out of Mississippi. And it's really starting to make a lot of sense now.
Yeah, Steve, are you and your camera guy and producer?
Oh, man, I'm getting out of here. Whoa! A big chunk of roof landed about 3 feet from me. I'll be back up next hour.
All right, Steve Harrigan reporting live from Gulfport, Mississippi. We're going to just continue to watch these pictures here for just a moment. I think you get some sense from Steve as to how fierce these winds are. I can tell you from personal experience.
Sounds like Gulfport, Mississippi, Biloxi, Mississippi, Pascagoula, and further east in Mobile, Alabama. or Mobile rather, and also Gulf Shores, Alabama. That was the location where just about a year ago, in September of 2004, when Ivan came on shore. Again, a Category 3 storm at that time that brought so much damage throughout the area. I want to get back to our meteorologist, Rick Reichmuth of the Fox Weather Center, watching this storm. 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Rick, what are you seeing now?
Yeah, you know, we're actually watching this.
We talked about that wraparound billboard, and look, it's been ripped to shreds. This last gust has taken care of that one. You can forget that, baby. This sign over here, this Treadwell Ford sign, is doing okay. Boy, that stings. But this band right now, Marshall and Heather, is about as bad as we've seen all morning. And fortunately, we're still able to get a picture out. We've got some good truck protection. Just keeping an eye out for flying debris. Fortunately, there's not a lot of trees around here, so we just watch out for these power lines. Woo, and these signs. Hardly anybody out on the roadway. And by the way, I wanted to update you again on that situation down on the Mobile River. Now we get a bit of a lull here. The oil tanker, which ripped from its moorings, they've got that shored up now with 3 tugboats. Took them a while. We still don't know if there's been any kind of oil leakage into the water there, but you can imagine how rough the Mobile Bay is and the surge flood concerns. That's why we pulled back yesterday afternoon to higher ground. We're a good 5 or 6 miles from the water. Let's spin around one more time and see the sign. Not anything new to show you in the past couple of minutes, but just feel you can maybe live vicariously through the camera and the TV of what it's like to be out during hurricane force wind gusts. Once they get any higher, I can't really stand up. I've got to hold on to something, but you get a brief break and then all of a sudden, boom, it just hits you. Marshall and Heather, we're here. We're hanging out. Man, yeah, no matter how little.
At Bayou La Battery, this is what we're talking about with the tide levels. There's 7 foot already. To give you an idea where we're at, if you look over here, you can see this is the shrimp boat area. There's the J.A. Winsell Bridge. I'm getting wind gusts here of 52 miles per hour with sustained winds at about 35 miles per hour. And the water is already knee deep, and it's continuing to grow rather quickly. We've been here probably 2 minutes, and it's already a little bit higher than it was when we got here. This is the area that we were at last night, and we talked to a lot of shrimpers that said they were going to stay on their boat because they felt like it was the safest place to be. They had them tied down way away from the boat, and by doing so, it's able to actually come up a little bit with the tide and then the eventual storm surge. And there's another wind gust of 51 miles per hour. So that's the condition right now in Bayou La Battery. We're going to see how it changes, and we'll get back to you. Back to you guys.
All right, thank you very much for that report. And as we just mentioned a couple of minutes ago, the eye of the storm now of Hurricane Katrina continues to move in that northeasterly direction. The eye of the storm officially was over the state of Mississippi. As you can see there, as the storm continues to move beyond New Orleans, Louisiana, moving into Mississippi, eventually Alabama, and continuing in a north pass. And we want to go now to another reporter who filed this report for us from Gulfport, Mississippi.
Meteorologist Dennis Washington on the Alabama Gulf Coast as we're watching Hurricane Katrina make landfall. Extremely strong winds are pounding the coastal areas. Wind gusts now up to 80 miles per hour as the storm pushes its way further inland. The center of the storm is 150 miles away, but hurricane force winds are being felt all the way to the Alabama-Florida border. People here on the Alabama Gulf Coast were evacuated on Sunday. The ones that did not leave have decided to take shelter today until the worst of the storm passes late Monday evening. Reporting from the Alabama Gulf Coast, I'm meteorologist Dennis Washington, Fox News.
Gives you an idea of what we're getting up and down the Gulf Coast there. And Janice's watching it back here in our studio. We were talking earlier, Janice, about this, the radar system over New Orleans that's out. How does that hamper you doing the job?
Our hearts go out to the people of New Orleans and the whole state of Louisiana, because we're getting what they must have already been through. And, you know, there's words to describe it. There's just so much debris flying around, not only at the ground level that's tumbling across the road, but also up in the air. And I'm talking way up in the air, high up where the lights to the intersection or the interstate are. It's just absolutely incredible.
So, David, if you can, I know that earlier when you were speaking to Bridget Quinn here a few hours ago, you called this response, the American Red Cross's response to Hurricane Katrina, the largest mobilization of resources in Red Cross history. Can you clarify that? Because when we're thinking of all of the major disasters, this is certainly a huge one then.
Well, like I said earlier, this is the largest mobilization to a single disaster in Red Cross history. What we're doing is we sent out an all-hands-on-deck to every single chapter in America, asking the chapter personnel.
Power went out. Then Katrina's winds peeled holes in the roof, causing leaks. Louisiana's governor says the people inside are safe. The storm is flooding homes in New Orleans, but the predictions of a 28-foot storm surge have been downgraded to 15 feet. That's still a pretty big storm surge. Still enough to cause extensive flooding. And we've just learned a building in New Orleans was knocked down and people may be trapped inside. Emergency officials cannot reach that building.
Katrina hit land about 7:10 a.m. our time as a Category 4. The massive storm made landfall near the bayou town of Bourras, Louisiana. Katrina's already being blamed on 3 deaths in Louisiana. One of the levees in New Orleans has already broken, flooding up to 9 feet expected in the city around that area. About 80% of the people who live in New Orleans did evacuate, but it is believed about 100,000 people remained, some in shelters of last resort, including the Superdome. You saw those pictures. As Mark just said, there are now 2 holes in the Superdome roof. Rain is pouring in when it's not so windy to keep the rain away. Let's head over to meteorologist Larry Mowry. Now he's tracking Katrina in the Local 6 headquarters. And Larry, the video from Mrs.
Power and fury of Katrina is being felt along the Gulf Coast. It came ashore in Louisiana early this morning as a massive Category 4 hurricane with winds topping 145 miles per hour and giant waves that are threatening to overrun entire towns. New Orleans is one of those cities that could be in for a long day. Katrina turned to the east before hitting land, which means its weaker side is pounding the Big Easy. But already there are power outages and reports of damage to the Superdome's roof, where some 9,000 people are riding out the storm.
Watching this radar closely here, we've gotten reports of widespread